Hi Booktube, Aaron here, and we're up to part 3 of this 700 subscriber special Q&A. And I think we're on the last batch of questions now. And I don't think there are any more questions where I've got any books prepared, but I don't think there are any more sort of bookish questions, so we'll see. So the first question then, is from JF. Congratulations, Aaron. Love the laid-back nature of your videos. Do you have any reading destinations? So, for example, book towns, writers' residences, or places from books you'd like to visit, regardless of time, space, money, and all of that. Yes. So yeah, thank you, JF, for your question and for your comment. Reading destinations. So almost every holiday I tend to go on it ends up being a bit of a reading holiday. So I'm going to be looking for bookshops and anything that's kind of related to books. So when we were in Paris earlier this year, we went to the Shakespeare and Co. And stuff like that. We were planning to go to what's the name of the cemetery? There's the cemetery where loads and loads of famous writers are buried. So Oscar Wilde is there, and Proust is there. And there's also like Chopin and other people. But we wanted to go there, but that was when all the strikes were going on. And for whatever reason, because of the strikes, the police wouldn't actually let us go into the cemetery, which was a bit of a shame. We just went and did something else, went to the Louvre or something. Yeah, so things like that. When we were in Guernsey, we went to go see Victor Hugo's house because he lived there when he was in exile, and that was really, really cool. We went into the room where he finished Les Miserables, which was really cool. So yeah, things like that I love to do. Hay-on-Wye is a place I'd love to go back to, so the UK's #1 book town. And there's a place in Scotland I'd like to go back to, or like to go to. We kind of passed it and didn't go in, but apparently it's got loads of bookshops. It's a little town, and I can't remember its name off the top of my head. What's its name? Can't remember, but yeah, there are quite a few in the UK I'd like to go to. Or go back to in some cases. But yeah, for like places I'd like to visit, that's quite. I've said before, if I'm ever in Rome, I'd like to go to the Protestant cemetery there and find Keats's grave. And I think Shelley was laid to rest there as well, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, but also they've said that the place where Keats was staying when he died has been turned into a museum, so I'd quite like to go there. I'd quite like to visit Prague as well. That's another very literary city. Oh man, where else? There are tons of places, and I'd always look for some kind of literary element. If I visited the States, in terms of bookshops, like I'd love to go to Portland and go to Powell's, and I'd like to visit Amherst as well, and visit the Emily Dickinson Museum. So there's like a handful of things, but there are definitely some places closer to home that I'd like to visit and revisit as well. Then next up we've got Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. Hi Alan. Congrats, mate. What are some of your other hobbies other than reading? This is one we've touched on. So there's been music, like playing guitar and other instruments. I like to write, walk. I like to doodle and to paint. I haven't done much painting in quite a while. But yeah, I just like just being creative and just making stuff. If I could, that would be how I'd spend a lot of my time. Sorry, I've just had some pizza and it's burnt the top of my mouth, so I'm speaking really weirdly or at least it feels like it. So yeah, thanks, Al. Next up, we've got John Warner. John didn't ask any questions, but we had a nice conversation in the comments. Then next up, Steve Donahue. Congratulations! Predictably, I have a barrage of questions. Number one, what is booktube for you? A book club? Your favourite TV show? Something else? And that's a good question, because in a way, it kind of very much started as kind of a TV show. So I kind of discovered booktube again in the pandemic, and I think I was very hungry just to hear different voices talking about books, and so it was because I couldn't like go out and talk to loads of people. So I found lots of bigger channels and things like books are better than food and things like that. And then I watched R.C. Walden as well for a while. And it'd just be something that every now and then I put them on, and it's like, oh, it's someone talking about a book. It's a good way to pass the time. At least I'm not watching a sitcom or something, which I mean, I quite like watching sitcoms. But and then I can remember when Kieran from KD Books was roasting one of R.C. Walden's books that he wrote, his first book, and I saw that video. It just came up because I've been watching R.C. Walden, and compared to Books Better Than Food, and R.C. Walden, KD Books was relatively small, and I think particularly back then, it was relatively early on for Kieran when I found his channel, and then I found just loads of other people. I found Daniel from Guilty Feet. I found Kelly and Jason, so Books I'm Not Reading and Old Blues Chapter and Verse, who sort of very quickly they became some of my favourites. And then it just kind of went from there really. I found Matthew from Maybe Book Club, found Steve, found just loads of people, and found that these people were talking to each other. I can remember seeing a video between like Brian from Bookish and Jason from Old Blues Chapter and Verse, and they were, it was a tag video, and they were, and like one was responding to something the other person had said. I was like, oh, all these people know each other and comment on each other's videos. This is really weird. And yeah, I just fell into the rabbit hole then. So it's not just a TV show now. So it's not what it is for me now. And it's not really necessarily a book club, even though I do enjoy joining in reading events and things. But the closest thing I can think of is, one, it's very much a conversation, and like most conversations where I'm a participant, I'm much happier just to listen to what people say and just chime in from time to time. And I think that's kind of reflected in my approach to the channel. But it's also kind of like a correspondence in a way, and it's like it's like in Pride and Prejudice when like Mr. Darcy is reading his letter when they're at breakfast. It's kind of like that. So I might be doing something else, but it's still a kind of communication, and that's the best I can kind of the best way I can describe it. It's like going through your letters at breakfast. Number 2, what do you consider the most embarrassing thing about Wales? So I've got a serious answer and a not serious answer. But the not serious answer is that if you go to Google Maps and you search for Merthyr Tydfil, and you have it on like the road layout, so you can see all the roads or whatever, and you zoom out, you look at the roads around Merthyr Tydfil, and there's a very there's a very triangular shape, and just the way it's laid out, it looks a little bit like a diagram that you might have been shown at biology at school. Very a very fertile region of Wales. So Merthyr Tydfil looks a bit like a uterus, at least the road layout. around the town. So that's my non-serious answer. But I think as well, I don't know, there's a bit of a, I think culturally, like I think Wales is moving on and trying to kind of speak up, because it's kind of the underdog of the United Kingdom, really, I think. And I think over here, there's still a sense that culturally it's a little insular. It's been getting better, but I do find that insular kind of atmosphere a little bit embarrassing when I think of other European countries and stuff, and how much more open it seems, at least to me. So that's a bit of what's embarrassing about Wales. Yeah. Number 3, if you could only if you could only murder Micah Cummins in one spectacularly gory way, what would it be? Oh, poor Micah. I think it would have to involve um, some kind of garden appliance, some kind of like lawnmower or hedge trimmer. I don't know. Um, oh man, it's quite hard. It'll be tempting to see if, with him being so um it's kind of so interested in Russian history, just to kind of tie him in a bag, throw him in the river, and just see if the whole I'm blanking. Ah, ah, you know what I mean. I've just read Crime and Punishment, and so I'm saying Raskolnikov, but I actually mean Rasputin. Yeah, just see if the Rasputin thing will happen. But yeah, for some reason, garden implements come to mind as well. And then number 4, have you ever tried to explain booktube to a civilian? No, not really. I don't really talk about booktube much with my friends. Like, some of my family and stuff know that I have a channel, and sometimes watch my videos. But I don't really talk to them about it, and I've never really had to explain it. Yeah, I have yet to, I don't know, challenge myself in that way. But yeah, thanks for the question, Steve. And we're nearly there. 2 more to go. Then we've got Deborah Johnson. Deborah says, congratulations. And what do I do for work? So yeah, thanks, Deborah. And again, this is something we've already covered. So I work for a university, and I work in the disability service, and I just help with admin. So I do lots of paperwork. I'm a bit of a secretary as well, I suppose, in some of the things I do. But I just keep things running. And that's what I do at the moment. I'm fairly new to that job. I'm about 4 months in, something like that. And before then, I was working in a theatre, and I was in the box office, basically. I did some other things, but it was, essentially amounted to being a box office clerk. So yeah, that's what I do and what I've done recently. And then the last question is from Errata, or Errata. Congratulations. My question is, if you could live anywhere, where would that be? And that's a really, really hard question. I don't know. I've got, as much as in summer it's quite nice where you don't have to think too much about layers and things. And I do have a bit of an attraction to places like Italy and to Spain and stuff. They're places that, at least on my imagination, they have a very strong pull. But when it comes to somewhere I could imagine myself living, it's always much colder places. I think I would get along quite happily on mainland Europe. I see myself as a European, and particularly Scandinavia. Wouldn't mind living in Norway or Sweden, maybe on like a fishing village or something, so somewhere relatively quiet. Yeah, and somewhere where it gets properly cold in the winter and there's snow. I would really like that. And I just like that feeling of it being really dark and cold and maybe raining or snowing outside, you're all safe and cozy inside. And so if I could live anywhere in the world, yeah, it would be, I don't know, yeah, either Scandinavia or, I don't know, maybe Germany. But yeah, I quite like living in the UK as well. And yeah, don't really have any specific plans to leave. I'd eventually like to slowly make my way a little more north. But at least at the moment, a lot of the jobs seem to be clustered more to the south. At least that's at least for me at the moment. But yeah, eventually, I mean, my wife Jasmine grew up in Scotland, and there's a part of her that would really like to move back to Scotland. Um, and so yeah, we'll just see. But if I could, yeah, I'm rambling on about just all the places I could live. But yeah, I mean, if we're moving up north, up to Scotland, it's going to be a bit colder. It's going to be um, windier and rainier, which suits my temperament. I quite enjoy that. It's been really, really hot recently, or not massively hot, but really humid, and the weather keeps saying there's going to be thunderstorms, and it's going to rain, and we just get a bit of a drizzle for about half an hour, and then the clouds go, and it's just as sticky and just kind of horrible. So yeah, this kind of hot weather I don't particularly like. So yeah, I much prefer um, I think colder weather. But you know, I'll be cursing myself for saying that in the dead of winter, I think. But there we go. That's the end of the Q&A, the end of my rambling as well. But I don't think that was too much of a train wreck. I surprised myself at how many videos it would take to do this. I thought I could just do it in one video, but there was actually much more to talk about than I thought. So I've split it up, and I think that was a good way to go. But we'll see. But I might do this again in the future. We'll see where it goes. But for now, thanks for watching. Thank you again for everyone who left questions and left comments and just all the kind things that people have said. It's been oh, excuse me, that's the pizza coming up again. Ugh. It's been really, really nice. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.